We're live. So some breaking news coming in the last couple of minutes or so, hence the late night stream here. And it's one of those ones where it's surprising, I guess, to a point, but also not totally surprising. I think the surprising element about it is that he only came back in the summer, and he's already gone. He being Samoa Joe, you can see it right there. The breaking news coming in the last couple of minutes or so is that Samoa Joe has been released once again by WWE. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful was the first to break this story, and that is that Samoa Joe is indeed gone from the company. Now, Samoa Joe's story when it comes to WWE in the last 2 years, 18 months, it's almost unlike, I think, any we've ever seen, really. You've got a guy that in, was it February, just before the pandemic, you've got a guy that has a series of concussions, 2 concussions really close together, then he has a wellness violation, moves into color commentary on Monday Night Raw. He's doing that throughout the pandemic. Then he calls WrestleMania, 2 nights of it, last year in April, calls 2 nights of WrestleMania. Then, just days after calling WrestleMania, WWE's biggest show of the year, he gets released from the company. And bear in mind, during this time, he hasn't wrestled for 18 months. And it's outrage. People are furious because Samoa Joe, what a talent. Even though he is older and he's injury prone, he's still Samoa Joe. And even if he wasn't wrestling, he offered so much to the company in terms of a color commentator. He was the best color commentator in the WWE. Arguably, he still could be, even with the rise of Pat McAfee. So he has that going on. He gets released. People are thinking, you know what, maybe it's the best thing for him because maybe he can go to an AEW. And during this time, Bryan Danielson and CM Punk they weren't even in All Elite Wrestling at this period of time, but people were excited to go, maybe they could come into AEW. He could come into AEW and he doesn't have to work a heavy schedule and we can see the old Samoa Joe of what's left of the old Samoa Joe. Then, during all of that, that's when at the time, Triple H still had just a smidge of power in WWE. Triple H decides, no, I'm a Samoa Joe guy. You know, I brought Samoa Joe into the company the first time. It's a mistake to see someone like Samoa Joe leave the company. I'm putting my foot down. I'm calling Samoa Joe. I'm saying, Joe, what happened to you is a mistake. Leave it with me. We will get you back in the company because I believe in you. I know what you offer. You're my guy. Okay, this is Triple H speaking. You're my guy, Samoa Joe, and you've always got a place with me. You've always got a place in NXT. And Triple H, to his credit, is a man of his word, and he puts his foot down. He goes to WWE and says, no, we made a mistake. If you don't want him on Raw doing commentary, if you're not going to let him wrestle on the main roster, give him to me. And he works out a deal. Samoa Joe comes back. He's working initially as a talent scout, an on-camera authority figure, an assistant to William Regal, who's no longer with the WWE. And the part of the deal would be that he would continue to rehab. He would continue to undergo these concussion tests every week or every so often to ultimately facilitate a return to the ring. And it happened. Joe returned to the ring actually quicker than I think a lot of people thought. He did the on-screen authority figure or assistant authority figure gimmick for a few weeks before it was set up that he would wrestle Karrion Kross NXT Championship during SummerSlam weekend. His first match in about 18 months, and it was great. He won the NXT Championship in his first match back, and we never saw him wrestle again. Never again. Just a few weeks later, it was due to an injury, due to a medical issue, I've got to vacate the NXT Championship. Just so coincidentally, by the way, it's just around that period of time that NXT 2.0 and the new version of NXT, the updated version of NXT, is starting to gain momentum. And Nick Khan, who already had a ton of power in WWE as the president of the company, he does the interview of Ariel Helwani during SummerSlam weekend, and he's saying that we're going to see a new version of NXT, a revamped version of NXT, and all this kind of stuff. And what are we seeing now? And what have we seen over the last 2 days specifically? We have seen every single person that is a Triple H guy go from the company, apart from Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels and Triple H, they're the last 2 people standing. Every single person that was a Triple H guy, I don't think we have heard anything yet about Jeremy Borash, who was a Triple H guy, but essentially everyone else who was a Triple H guy, they're gone. They're absolutely gone. Whether it's, I mentioned William Regal, whether it's Road Dogg, whether it's whoever, all of these names that are getting released. Gabe Sapolsky was released by WWE as well today. Of course, the Evolve founder, former booker of Ring of Honor, had a history of ECW as well. A great creative mind for the business. I know Gabe Sapolsky, people have contrasting opinions on him, and that's fair. But he, again, was a Triple H guy. I mean, I recall maybe a year ago, there was discussions about, the NXT for NXT being created. And that was going to be head up by Gabe Sapolsky and by Jeremy Borash, because NXT, the black and gold version of NXT, was a full-fledged third brand to the point where it needed a developmental territory of its own. And we were going to get, I think it might have been called NXT Evolve or something like that. I think they even shot a pilot for it that will never, ever, ever see the light of day anymore. So I look at all of this news now, and I just think, what must Triple H think? What must Triple H think? All of his guys are gone. The brand he helped create is gone. The brand that he spent a decade building and growing into, I guess, WWE's version of the independent scene is gone. The only thing that it has in common with the old version of NXT, now NXT 2.0, is the name. They might as well not call it NXT anymore. And again, I mentioned this yesterday when I did the William Regal live stream. I don't necessarily disagree with changing NXT and changing the philosophy of it. I can understand the vision that they're going for. I can. Truly, I can. But there are people like William Regal, like Samoa Joe. Even if you don't think Samoa Joe fits into NXT 2.0, arguably he doesn't. Right? Everyone in NXT 2.0 now is pretty much in their 20s, comes from an athletic background, certainly isn't an indie darling or someone with experience like Joe. Okay, he doesn't fit in the current system in NXT, but he was still a talent scout. He could still do color commentary. He could still do something. And for me, it's another release where it just looks like it's a political thing. It has to be, right? It has to be a political thing of, this is just Nick Khan sending a message. All of the guys that were previously involved in NXT, they're gone. NXT's different now. I see Ricky here says, do you think Shawn Michaels is going to be released next? I should move up there. I was having this problem last night. It never goes in the right place. There you go. No, I don't think he will. I don't think Shawn Michaels will be released next, because Shawn Michaels still does have a legitimate, genuine position of power. He's essentially, certainly in Triple H's absence, and I don't know if Triple H has even been back to NXT taping since he had his cardiac event last year. Essentially, Shawn Michaels is running the show there when it comes to NXT tapings. He's what would be the executive producer, showrunner, whatever you want to call that title. He's running the shows. He's still heavily involved in the tapings. So Shawn Michaels isn't going anywhere because he's still running the tapings. He's probably the only Triple H guy that's safe. If anything, in Triple H's absence, he has actually risen to even more power, and he does the NXT UK tapings as well. He does those remotely, but when they're taping them, he's over an intercom system talking to the talent, talking to the staff in BT Sports Studios in London. So Shawn Michaels isn't going anywhere, I don't think. But to be honest with you, when I saw the Samoa Joe news, 10, 15 minutes ago now, again, I just sort of shook my head, but I'm kind of over, I suppose, being surprised by this news. Nothing should surprise us anymore. No release really should surprise us anymore when it comes to WWE and NXT. And the Joe one, I just think it's a shame, because I look at a guy that frankly doesn't have many years left in the ring because of his age and because of his injuries and all that kind of stuff. And I look at the last 18 months, 2 years, and I just say, what a waste of time. What a waste of time. And it's not to say he didn't get paid, because he did. But what a waste of time for the guy. The guy spent 18 months behind the announcer's desk at Monday Night Raw, did a fantastic job. I'm not doubting that he didn't do a great job, because he did. He did a great job. But ultimately, he wanted to get back in the ring. He's always wanted to get back in the ring. He gets released, and again, people are like, you let a talent like Samoa Joe go, you're nuts. And then he gets brought back, and ultimately he found himself, I guess, in the middle of this sort of political power play between Triple H and Nick Khan. That's what Samoa Joe was. Samoa Joe got released by the company, and then he was a pawn. he was a pawn in Triple H trying to clap back, I suppose, to Nick Khan. Says, no, you don't have ultimate authority over NXT. I do. I'm bringing Samoa Joe back, even though you released him. And then now, Nick Khan, once again, is clapping back at Triple H and saying, no, you're not. You don't have ultimate authority. I do. Samoa Joe's gone again. And if I could speak to Joe, if I had advice to Samoa Joe, I would just say, look, mate, get out. Get out. How can you have any faith or any trust in a company that's fired you twice in the space of 12 months and you've done nothing wrong? Nothing wrong. And they fired you twice. What's the phrase? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And Samoa Joe should never ever go back to WWE again. Because how can you come back from that? And again, I know people be like, oh, Owen, you're such an AEW mark, right? Oh, you're a big AEW mark. What, you want everyone to go to AEW? I have no idea how many matches Samoa Joe has left. Probably not many. Again, the guy's been going for a while, and his style, he's already beat up. And the fact he has wrestled one match in the last 2 years because of his concussion issues and because a lot of other injuries, he was injury prone in like 2014 when he was still in Impact. He was injury prone then. There were things about Samoa Joe having injury problems, and his last few years on the main roster, he was injury prone. He obviously needs to work a seriously reduced schedule. But can he still wrestle? Damn right he can still wrestle. Go watch his match against Karrion Kross in August. He can still go. But he needs to work a reduced schedule. That's AEW. AEW does tapings once a week. But they're still on TBS, they're on TNT, they're a growing company, and just as a pro wrestling enthusiast, just as a pro wrestling fan, everyone, even CM Punk himself, when Samoa Joe was released in April, and CM Punk wasn't even in AEW at the time, he was messaging Joe. And Joe was messaging back. And it was a bit sad when Joe went back to NXT, and it was great because you're like, Samoa Joe's going to wrestle again. But when Punk arrived in AEW in August, you kind of thought, what could have been? And it felt like maybe that ship had passed. Maybe we were never going to see Samoa Joe versus CM Punk again, because their matches, their rivalries, they're some of the greatest matches in certainly Ring of Honor history, but certainly, the modern pro wrestling in terms of the last 20 or so years, their matches, they're mythic, they're legendary. Could they ever live up to that standard today? Probably not. But the idea of CM Punk versus Samoa Joe one more time in front of an arena full of people, and no disrespect to Ring of Honor, but at the time it was in front of a couple hundred people. This time, it would be in an arena, a sold-out arena in front of 15, 20,000 people. And maybe that being Joe's last match, or certainly one of CM Punk's last match in this final run of his career as well. That's exciting. And I think it's what Samoa Joe deserves. For everything he's been through over the last couple of years, he deserves that big moment in the spotlight. People were saying it even on his main roster run with WWE at the time. And again, this was a beat-up, older Samoa Joe. He deserved to be WWE Champion or Universal Champion. People were calling for it when he faced Brock Lesnar. And when was that, 2017? Because he's great. He's still great. And even a beat-up, different Samoa Joe, he's great. So I do hope he goes to AEW. I do hope he has matches against CM Punk and Bryan Danielson and Hangman Page, and the list can go on. Kenny Omega, can you imagine? Kenny Omega versus Samoa Joe, it's awesome. It's amazing. And also, as well as someone that covers Impact Wrestling, him to go and do a final run in Impact would be great too. We know that the crossover between AEW and Impact Wrestling has sort of ceased a little bit. They're still on very good terms, but that crossover has sort of stopped for now. But the idea of, again, maybe Samoa Joe doing a similar thing to CM Punk, when he just goes, look, this next run is the last run of my active in-ring career. It didn't end the way I wanted it to end when it came to WWE. For 2 years, I did nothing. I commentated, I was a talent scout, I was at tryouts. I had one match against Karrion Kross, and that was about it. I've got this, I know I've got more to give. I don't have a lot, but I know I have more to give. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to AEW and I'm going to wrestle CM Punk one more time. That I never thought was possible. Because you think about it, Punk versus Joe, over the last few years, we never thought that was going to happen, ever. Because Punk was retired, Joe was in WWE, and then when we thought it could happen again, Punk was in AEW, Joe went back to WWE, And then with Joe's injuries, it was like, oh, is Joe retired? But Punk's come back. We never thought it was going to happen. Never thought it was going to happen. So the idea of that match possibly happening, that's why I look at this release and I go, it's just WWE being WWE at this point. But, you know, finally, maybe Joe's career can end on his own terms. And I think that's what we have to look at this. We have to look at this as a negative that absolutely 100% can be turned into a positive. And that is encouraging. That is encouraging. But, you know, going back to the Impact thing I was just saying there, I would love to see if this was Joe's final in-ring run. I'd love to see him go back to Impact, or at least have one match. Maybe that's all it would be, one match. Whether it's Slammiversary next year, whether it's Rebellion in April, whether it's whatever it is, whether it's Bound for Glory next year, and it's Joe's, you know, final match inside of an Impact ring, and he goes, look, I know I've got so much history in Impact Wrestling, and I want to have one more match there before I retire, because I feel like I can only go for the next, I don't know, year or something like that. And maybe he decides to have a match in New Japan, whatever it may be. So it's just, like I said, Samoa Joe, I really feel for him. I do. And again, not just because of the injuries, and not just because everything that's kind of happened to him over the course of the last couple of years, not just because he's been released twice in the space of 12 months. I feel for him because I feel like he got caught up in something that's way, way bigger than him. He's just a talent at the end of the day. He's just a wrestler. And he got caught up in, you know, WWE political Game of Thrones madness between Triple H, Nick Khan, and Vince McMahon, and the future of NXT and all this kind of stuff. Because that's really what it is. When we look back in a couple of years on the history of NXT, and people are doing their podcasts about the best of NXT, and Triple H has his own NXT podcast or something like that, moments about Samoa Joe will be discussed because, again, it's politics. It's WWE politics. It's Nick Khan trying to impose his power by releasing Joe in the first place. It's Triple H saying, no, I still control NXT and bringing back Samoa Joe. And then it's Nick Khan once again going, no, I'm ultimately in charge, and he's gone. So it's a disappointing one, but to be honest with you, I think it's probably the best thing. I think it's probably the best thing for Joe. And like I said, the idea of having Samoa Joe versus Punk and Samoa Joe versus Danielson, and possibly Samoa Joe being back in an Impact ring, maybe an Impact Hall of Fame spot or something like that. That's exciting. That's exciting, and I do hope to see that again. Now, when it comes to the NXT releases, I'm not sure if this is the end of it. We'll probably see more. But as I mentioned, I touched on it a couple of minutes ago. The time about being surprised about NXT releases, or just WWE releases in general, I'm kind of over that, because WWE is the amount of people WWE have released in the last 12 months, the high profile people WWE have released in the past 12 months, and for the majority of them, to be honest with you, for the majority of them, it's probably been the best thing for them. Probably been the best thing for them. And when I say that, I don't mean it as a bash against WWE. WWE's got their direction they're going in, and that's it. The person I sympathise for Joe in this case is Joe. Obviously, one, because he lost his job, and make no mistake, he'll be fine. Joe will have plenty of offers, but I sympathise with Samoa Joe because, as I mentioned, he's just sort of lost 2 years that he can't get back, and that is frustrating for him. That absolutely is frustrating for him. But as I mentioned, looking at a negative, you can turn it into a positive and say that Punk versus Joe dream match is back on, and that's very exciting. But look, guys, as I mentioned, this is going to be a short one, so be sure to smash a like on the video, be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. This weekend, technically tomorrow now, yes, technically tomorrow because it's Friday over here, tomorrow we'll be doing Hard to Kill. It's Impact Hard to Kill weekend, so we'll be doing a watch along and a post show for that. It's going to be a late one for yours truly. I haven't done a watch along in a while, so I'm excited for that. I'm very excited for that. So we're going to be doing an Impact Hard to Kill watch along and post show, which is going to be fun. Tomorrow I'm hoping to get Impact and possibly WWE or an AEW news video out. It depends on the news tomorrow, but we're going to get an Impact news video out tomorrow because I want to get one out. We haven't had one for a while, and either an AEW or WWE news video out tomorrow as well. So plenty of content coming, and we're going to up it. I know the numbers have been a bit low in January with everything that's been going on, but new year, new schedule, we'll be back. So be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Be sure to smash a like on the video, and I'll speak with you again very, very soon. Peace.